What were you talking about? Oh yeah,
Knives.
Knives. Yeah.
Stabbing and biting.
Fighting.
All right, how many times have we heard just shoot him? I just shoot that guy.
Just shoot him.
Yeah.
Like just
Running and gunning.
running and gunning.
What are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Doesn't work.
I mean, it can.
I've seen it.
Yeah, it can.
Yeah, it can work, but I think you need a few more pathways to that, more intelligent pathways than just, well, it's going poorly now, I better fucking run.
Yeah.
I think we do a pretty good job.
Usually,
of that.
when people say that, the context that they mean is like, okay, I've got a knife, I'm coming to stab you, I'll pull my gun and shoot you.
Yeah.
And that's why that doesn't work. Like if it's like, man, that dude from like, down the street seems like he's coming toward me with a knife, I better get my gun that I have on me out and shoot him before he gets here. It would work then. Like
Right.
it'd work pretty well then, I think. But outside of that,
Well, I think a lot of those, people just forget the cases of like, when did you realize it was a threat? When did you realize there was a blade? I mean, how many like people that we've actually met that have been stabbed that made the comment, I didn't even know there was a knife involved. I didn't even know I was getting stabbed. And how many people we've talked to, I didn't even know there was a knife involved. So it's like, okay, you're just going to shoot him. But at what point in time did you even realize that this was a lethal force situation? This was a situation where you could get it. And then if it was that late where you're already getting punched up, at what point in time are you grabbing for your gun and what skills do you have to make that happen?
So
Fascinating.
Can I throw something in here? I'll pose this question. Have you guys heard of the 21-foot rule?
Tool or drill?
Yeah.
Tool or drill.
Spit some thoughts on that, because that's such a huge myth in the law enforcement community, because that old video with, I believe,
Dan
Inosanto,
Yeah.
who I don't know the man, so I'm not going to speak to his credentials, but
You don't know him personally?
no,
I thought everybody
I don't call him every night like, hey, you sing me a lullaby. But no, I've watched the old Toller videos. I've watched all that stuff. And of course that was like spit out at me in law enforcement training.
Sure.
For many years. And I was like, I don't believe that. And Force Science was like, yeah, it's not true. They're like, we'll put the science to it. It's not true.
Yeah, it's absolutely
You're
not.
going to get stabbed.
Well, so that's the
might get stabbed.
Yeah, might.
Might.
Yeah,
It depends.
yeah.
Correct.
And it's crazy that thing is still such a it's so codified almost, like, and you hear it in so many circles, and it's like okay, the 21-foot rule is essentially saying like, and the way I think that they posed it with the Dan Asano scenarios that they filmed back in, this is probably the early 80s, maybe even late 70s, where they entered into a room approximately 21 feet away from the subject, who was Dan Asano in this case, and his instructions were upon like some kind of verbal command, I think, was to like, and he's facing the other way even, and to turn around, draw like with a knife drawn, run at them and stab them before they could shoot him. And he was successful like every time. And they started it as smaller increments and built all the way up to 21 feet. And I think beyond 21 feet was the failure rate for the most part. There's so many things wrong with that, though, like on both sides. Like, so it is the thing where, yeah, you are going to get to them. Now, here's the inherent issue with it. If you have time to draw your gun, you may be able to get it out. Now, the guy is already up on you and slicing, dicing, and everything else. That doesn't mean you're not still able to shoot while you're getting sliced and diced. So, I mean, they're taking it like a game of tag a lot of the time. Can I tag you before you tag me? And that tends to not be how knife attacks work if you've ever seen almost any of them, right? There are cases. Somebody can get stabbed 157 times and keep fighting. Somebody might get touched with a knife one time and then he like drops and bleeds out. So it's such a unreliable kind of thing to even put too much, this is how it's going to go to it. So on the gun side or on the knife side, that's a flawed drill, obviously. But it looks dramatic. And again, it goes back to the PPC thing. It's like a PPCT thing. It's why it's still in law enforcement training and still in like verbiage and whatever literature, because it was such a dramatic presentation at the time. It was such a dramatic representation. Like, oh shit, then the guy with a knife is winning these like consistently. So that was a big issue with that. But
Well, I mean, like how much access, again, to kind of what you're talking about with the way it was presented, you didn't have as much access to dash cam footage, body cam footage, security camera footage, where now we can pull up, I can show you 100 knife videos in 5 minutes, based and be like, look at all of these scenarios, right? And so I think that's fascinating in and of its own right. But like other things to point out with the problem with that drill is like, even if the 21 foot rule was accurate and the way they presented it, like getting the gun out, it wasn't even like getting the gun out using sims and like how many times did he make accurate shots, like all that type of stuff. But even on the other side of it with the knife is like, okay, so we found at the time what is most likely the most athletic, talented, skilled knife person
Yeah,
we
in the
could
world.
ever throw at you.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
Told him exactly what he needed to do and when he needed to do it, like to get it done.
Yeah.
So that's a fascinating element of it. But I think nowadays, like with the access to the information, I mean, we get tagged in videos all the time as far as knife stuff. And the one thing that I think always jumps out to me is, yes, there are certainly some similarities, but every situation is different. From the knife that's being used to the physical ability level of the person using the knife to the physical ability level of the person defending themselves to the context and scenario of whatever's going on. And it's like at this point in time, with as much content as we can take a look at, how can anyone say, oh, just do A, B, and C, that's how you solve the knife equation, or just do this, that's how you solve the knife equation. And for us, it's like we kind of took the opposite route, which is like, we don't have any idea what's going to go on. So let's break down, you know, like I always refer to them as kind of like the buckets of training that might fill the gaps. And let's learn how to do that stuff and then how to put those together. And then really at the end of the day, it's going to come down to like, the more you train, the more likely you'll survive, hopefully. You know, but at the end of the day, I mean, but there's people.
It depends.
Yeah, it depends 100%. But there's videos, you know, like we did a breakdown of it. The kid I'm pretty sure it was a high school, but the kid in the high school that attacked the kid in the hallway, and they got in a pretty good scuffle. And there's a lot that you can pick up from that video, but there's a hand switch in that video. The kid obviously had some type, I imagine he was a wrestler to some degree, but all of that. But one of the biggest things to take away from that was like the kid was stabbing with like the equivalent of like a Texas Roadhouse steak knife, which is not sharp. It's rounded on the end. And it's serrated. So had he got in there and wanted to gnaw the kid's head off, that's one thing. But it's like the kid got stabbed probably 5 or 6 times in that video, but there weren't any cuts and stab wounds because it was a dull, you know, knife. Yeah. And then you have the complete opposite of that, which is I don't know if you saw the video of the two ladies fighting in the fast food restaurant.
Oh yeah.
And she's got like the truck stop Crambit that she pulls out. That's like, you know, tie-dye multicolored neon, you know, everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Gas station knife.
Exactly. Yeah. And she pulls that out, and then the girl on top ends up getting it from her and is like hooking her up and getting stabbed. But even at the end of that, like she stabbed that chick several times and she was fine. So it's one of those things that's like, you can't, I don't know. It's always baffling to me, you know, like you were pointing out, just do this. I would have done this. It's like, you have no idea because you don't know what are you going to get dealt, like what circumstance. The guy, Brian, just did the breakdown of the video they posted. The dude that walks up behind the dude at the bar, pulls the knife out and stabs him in the back of the neck. I would have just shot that guy. He didn't even know he was getting stabbed.
Well, like even
situational awareness.
That's why I always sit at the bar with my gun like this behind me, like that, with a reflective surface in front of me. You know?
Even in like evolutions and like Craig's courses, you get in the circle of doom. You're like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do this. I'm just gonna say this, and I'm gonna get right out. You get out there, and you're like, ah, fuck.
Nope. And then you got Phil Gentry stomp kicking you in the chest.
Like, don't kick, don't kick, getting annihilated.
Well, and that's such a perfect example. Like Craig is literally like,
don't do this.
Don't do a takedown. And what is the first thing that happens the second it hits is a takedown. And it's like, you couldn't even manage the stress of a controlled, contained, safe scenario with a fake knife to actually follow the rules of the drill. Like you couldn't even process that. What makes you think you're going to be, you know, Captain Hero in real life? Like it's, oh my God, that stuff cracks me up, man. Yeah.
Well, I think people have like the video game mentality. That's like their inventory is going to pop up and they're going to pick the right tool for the right time. They're going to do the thing and it's all going to work out.
Well, and that's it. That's what I meant by, you know, my less than diplomatic response to that one question about the guy. It's like, this is so telling of how zero of training that you because they're formulating that concept of what they would just do in that situation based off of John Wick movies, off of whatever they've seen on TV, whatever they've seen from choreography and whatever, which is ironic about those kind of movies because like the same people who will go on and talk shit about people doing actual technique training and stuff and actual stuff, they'll be the same ones talking that shit and then going to see John Wick like, man, most realistic fight scenes ever. You know, right?
Yeah.
Did you see that part where he judo through him and then hit the knife with a book? Yes,
Yeah.
that's exactly what you're gonna do.
It's
I
great.
feel like Just Run and Just Shoot 'Em is the cousin, the expounded version of I Just See Red. It's like
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
it's like,
Bodies hit the floor,
everyone
bro.
knows that's a stupid comment, so like I'm gonna say this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say I just shoot him, and it's like a flow chart of dumb shit. You just say. It's just like, I said this, and then I went here, and then I said this. and
Every
I-
single one of those is simply an excuse to not learn how to actually defend yourself.
right. God
Well,
forbid
no,
you-
but I bought a gun and I can shoot. Do you guys know that I can get from my holster to shots on target and point whatever? And it's like, okay, but at what point did you process you needed to get the gun in your hand and do that thing? Well, and then the other thing that cracks me up is you have guys that do like the just run thing, and then respectfully, as I look at you in the camera, you kind of click on their profiles and it's like, you're about
not
40
running.
pounds overweight. You're not running anywhere.
Yeah, you're just running about 9 feet, bro.
Yeah,
Like,
you're gonna run faster than the crackhead that wants that $20 bill in your back pocket. Like, no, you're not. Like
that guy
oh,
is
no, he's not.
motivated.
He's
Like,
so
That dude
motivated.
is motivated.
He's gonna run through walls.
Yeah,
and,
like
you know, and you're gonna fucking blow a menial meniscus trying to
Well,
pivot to get out of there.
And that was the last thing I was going to say about the Tooler drill before we just let that thing die. But it
it won't die. That's
Well,
the problem.
it won't.
well, because like whenever I first heard it, like back in probably the '90s, and people were talking about that, and I was like, oh, interesting. And we did it. When we would mess around with it in Kali and jiu-jitsu and everything too, and we would like replay it and we would test it out, and it's like, there's something to this, but we were following kind of the same tropes. It's like, we weren't doing some rounds, we were pulling blue guns that were inert, and we were playing tag with it and whatever. So it was like, okay, I guess that's a thing. But the more that we test it out, it's like anybody I think that does any kind of like genuine testing with that and intellectually honest testing with that is going to find out pretty quick, like, oh, there's so many problems with this. And one of the cops, one time we were doing a course with these cops and we were doing specifically about edge weapons, and we started talking, and they brought up the Tooler drill. We were talking about some of the problems that we were having with it, and but we ran it with them. And one of the cops, I never really even thought about this because probably I'm not a cop, but he said, I'm never 21 feet away from a subject.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going into single wide trailers, I'm walking into enclosed environments. I'm right up next to somebody's car. I'm in these areas with these obstacles, and who is going to pull that blade and come from that far of a distance and give me that much time? So, that was another issue with it too, and I was like, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But that is true. You're never even going to be that far.
I mean, what if they give you one single juke or a certainty, and then they've added everything?
Yeah.
A whole new element.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it's funny you say
Yeah,
that.
running zigzag.
Like,
I'm gonna hit you with the serpentine, bro. And then
Serpentine,
stab you.
yeah.
Thanks.
Four
Well, that
rolls.
is a thing in Pikiti though. They do a lot of that like triangle like stepping, And I was like, oh, that's why.
Oh, it's
So you can't shoot me.
forward accelerated matrix is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
The old
What?
FA, what was that? M. Forward accelerated matrix. I was trying to think. My brain always goes to acronyms. I don't know.
Everything's got an acronym. If you don't have an acronym, you're not real.